Hi, David. Did you want to do this for the network, or you said you didn't want to deal with like Netflix or any of those guys for this?
No, they just, made a hard press, and they were, first of all, I like their platform and what they do. It's kind of interesting. I've never done that before, and they just, courted me, as it were. And I was like a coquettish 16-year-old girl, winsome, out on a log, looking, winsomely out at the water, the river.
Yeah.
And they came along and scooped me up.
That's so romantic and poetic.
Loving, strong arms.
I was going to say a girl in a bus station in New York, but that's also a nice example.
Yeah, I feel like that's all anybody wants out of their comedy specials, right? To feel like that.
To feel like a little girl.
Yeah. In a boat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think.
So it's only online?
Yeah, and it's also in theaters this week.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, this week? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you go to a theater to watch it?
No.
You can't do it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Would you?
But I'm actually considering, I don't know how they're going to do, but I'm going to hopefully pop into one of them on Wednesday that I can get to.
I haven't gotten any numbers for it, but I have gotten word from my sources that Marvel is concerned. So that's good news.
Because they cornered that tiny little, that one theater that's got 9 seats in it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah,
it's the screen's roughly the size of a TV.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Where is it going to be seen in theaters? Like in New York and LA?
New York, Detroit, Boston, Philly, Riverside, California for some reason. And I'm forgetting the other places, but yeah.
Now, they were putting it in the theater. Is that because they want to just make money off it, or is that part of marketing it?
Well, look, it
sounds like a dumb question,
always
but
about making money.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know how that works. I don't know. And they've done this before. And I, when I was considering it, because I have a good relationship with Netflix, I've done a bunch of stuff for them. My last special was on there, but I talked to a bunch of comics who are bigger than me, who've gone with Comedy Dynamics, and they, explained the pros and cons, and they were all happy with it. So,
is Comedy Dynamics who's doing this?
Yeah.
Oh, is that Burr's company?
Say what?
Is that Bill Burr's company or no? What's Bill Burr's company?
All Things Comedy.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought.
Wait, do you have something on Comedy Dynamics?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so.
You might. You might want to check it out.
Maybe I do.
You're owed some major money.
But this is the first time you've had a special that would go to movie theaters, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's the first thing I thought when I heard it was like to go and sit in a movie theater. Because I never like to watch any or listen to anything that I do.
No one else does either.
That's true. That's the issue. But I feel like if it was in a movie theater, just even if I had to leave after 2 minutes, just to experience what that is like, I would have to see.
Well, it's just bigger.
Well, yeah, but I would have to see how much bigger.
But you also
people sitting in theater seats and the whole thing. I don't know.
It's pretty cool. I like the idea of it. It's it's a little overwhelming.
But the laughs coming, that's what would scare me, is like waiting for the laughs. Like I went to the premiere of a comedy that did not get the laughs anticipated. And it's humiliating when you watch, especially major actors who have...
you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to one of these theaters and bring in like a tiny little but powerful speaker and just play cricket noises. And just cue it up for where the punchlines come.
That to me would be the scariest part, though, is like if a joke doesn't land in the live audience, watching it will be so difficult.
Well, but yeah, it's all good. I mean, not to be conceited about it, but I mean, it was a strong set,
sure.
So it plays on the screen and through the speakers. There'll be laughs, but whether the people there are just sort of looking at it. But it's New York audiences can have a tendency to, when they see something funny or hear something funny, their reaction is more like this, like,
Mm-hmm.
Like an acknowledgement of the humor value.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like I understand your reference.
Right. You're like, well, you could have done that through the sounds of ha ha ha.
Yes.
That's kind of what we...
the human reaction.
CBS was we have it on the prep sheet that on CBS you talk about being abandoned, and that kind of freaks you out. The idea that you might do it.
The idea that I might talk about it on CBS.
We're not talking about the idea that you're we're concerned that you would do it.
Oh yeah. Well,
I was watching that, and I love that you told him. You were like, because once you get into it, You're like, I don't know if I want to talk about this on CBS This Morning
I actually started to get a little emotional because I haven't really addressed it, and it completely came up organically. I mean, that's like a 45-minute, hour-long interview that they chop up into 6 minutes,
Right.
But once we got into it, it was odd, and I was like keeping my shit together because I haven't really talked about it. But it was the idea because a lot of what anchors the new special is that I have a kid. And I've never had a kid before, so that was kind of the thrust of the interview too. And then I just sort of organically started talking about how, and this is true, like I always wanted kids, but I was reluctant because I wondered, still do, whether I have that thing in me that my dad had, which allowed him just to walk away from 3 kids and a wife and just to leave and go, man, this isn't my thing.
How old is your kid now?
How old were you when that happened?
I was 10. And for some reason on the CBS thing, they said I was a teenager, but I was 10, and I have 2 younger sisters, and they would have been 8 and 5. And my daughter now is a little over 2.
So at 2, I mean, could you even conceive of doing that?
No, not at all.
Right.
I mean, no, that's not true. In my darkest recesses, I can conceive of it. I can imagine it. I've got a pretty good imagination. I can imagine that. But it was about the justification for it.
Right.
Because of what he didn't just leave, he just left and didn't stay in touch and went far away and left us in severe debt. He was really irresponsible, and we were moving around constantly. He'd get fired a lot. And it was that it's one of the things that bothers me so much about Trump is my dad has those qualities. He's very narcissistic. Nothing is ever his fault. He's just a pathological liar, putting himself in a greater light, when you can, objectively look back and go, well, that's not true. You're completely at fault here.
Yeah.
And just the idea.
So you've talked to him since?
Yeah,
like as an
I
adult?
haven't talked to him since I was 19.
Okay.
That was there were because I was 10 and I still had that kind of dad worship things, and my mom was never the kind of person to go, your dad's a fucking asshole, fuck that motherfucker, and she had every reason to, but she didn't do that. And so until I was like 16, 17, when it started to kind of the veil was pulled slowly. I mean, I thought my dad was fucking balls, man, and he was living this cool life, and he was also personality-wise very different from my mom. My mom was very bookish and antisocial and awkward and intellectual. My dad was the complete opposite. Was street smart, but not smart, and was very affable and outgoing and gregarious and life of the party kind of guy. Complete opposites. And I don't know why I brought that up, but I just liked him. I still liked him. He was a cool guy, and I actually went to live with him in Arizona. I went when I was 13, something like that, 14 maybe. And we were, and he had no money and no job, and we were eating vending machine snacks because he knew a guy who filled vending machines. So we had Boston baked beans. I'll never forget this. It was about a 4 or 5 month period in Scottsdale, Arizona. Initially, we were staying in a guest room of somebody's house, and the mom and the daughters liked us, and the stepdad got it immediately. I only got this in retrospect. My stepdad, their stepdad was like, knew my dad was scamming them and just full of shit. And then we were kind of kicked out of there. We went to it's a long story. I'll save it for the memoir.
But also, okay, so you were 19. Do you want to talk to him at all, or is he dead?
No, not at all. He's alive. He's here in New York. I have not seen him since I was 19. And I can tell you the exact thing that made me go, it's just too long to bring up here. Where it's like, that's it. That's enough. And I told my sister who was on the phone with him, he had called, and I said, tell him I don't want to speak to him anymore. And he said, I'll never forget this, and I quote, that's all right. The only time he ever talks to me is when he wants money, which is like the most insane lie. First of all, he had no money. He never gave us any money. He took my bar mitzvah money. He took it. Yeah. He. I mean, it's crazy the way he.
But that's how he justifies it to himself.
He justifies it. Yeah.
Like you're the villain.
Yeah.
Because all you ever do.
The only time. Oh, it's just literally the exact opposite of the truth.
Wow.
And when he said that, that just sealed it.
You're like, you know what? There's never going to be a moment where he gets it. He's not going to see it this way. He's just not going to ever.
He will never. But I mean, the demonstrably all the things he did, the shit he put my mom through, and now that I'm a parent, like I kind of really in a bad way took for granted what my mom had to do to raise us, but literally not just no money, but in debt. And this is back in the 70s when. There were no ATMs, there were no check cashing places. I mean, she had no money, and we were in debt, and we were in this shitty apartment in Roswell, Georgia, and my dad's gone off to Arizona, and he was also sleeping around, constantly, and we found that shit out later. But my mom had to get a Chevron credit card and pay that off to get a Sears card to pay that off, and just had this bad job. And she's raising 3 kids who don't fully get why can't I have that? And we're eating powdered milk and government cheese and stuff like that. And it was just.
But it seemed like she did an amazing job of not putting her stress on you. The fact that you guys didn't even realize.
No, I mean, I can't imagine just having one kid and money and help.
Yeah.
And a wife who's there. I mean, to have 3 kids, no help and no money, and I mean, it was rough.
Has he reached out to you at all since you became successful?
He has made a couple of thinly veiled attempts through my sister. The one sister was she's kind of over it too, but she was the last person he completely fucked over. So there was still a bit of a relationship.
Right.
So he made some sort of efforts early on, but that's it.
But he's still so you think he's probably still the same guy? Like, some people just don't change.
I know people who've seen him, and I have relatives too, and yeah. I mean, I don't want to go into the whole thing, but
do you see any of when you're with your kid, whether you're disciplining them or whatever, do you see any of the little traits in you that were in him for those first 10 years? Not the sort of bigger picture. I'm a bad guy and I'm going to leave. But just the little, the way I'm going to tell you to do something, or the way I scold you, or
It's such a distant memory. I mean, I do use an English accent. He was from
is he British?
Yeah, and but not. I mean, I do beat the shit out of her. Yes. Okay. No, I don't.
What has she done to contribute to that too? It's not all your fault.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not my fault. I don't, but I'm not aware of it. And
right.
Maybe I've blocked it all out. I don't know.
Yeah. That seems that way. Do you like being a father though? Do you like the?
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Does it feel like does it stabilize life for you?
It definitely. I don't know about stabilizing it. Well, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have to be more responsible now, and so that part of me has changed. But I think that would have changed anyway with just aging. But yeah, I mean, it that's part of what the special is about. Slightly there's that kind of idea that runs through it, that the stuff that I'm talking about now has a different kind. There's an urgency to it that it was easy in other specials to take the subject matter and go, well, this is kind of fucked up. But now there's a whole thing to it.
As a comic too, talking about stuff like, all right, I'm a dad, or is it hard as a comic? You're like, fuck, I swore I would never talk about this, but now that it's actually a part of my life.
Oh my God, I talk about that. That's in the beginning of I'm like, look, all right, I'll finish my thought, that I'm not going to do an hour of dad jokes. I'm very hyper aware of that. It would, first of all, make me such a hypocrite, based on material I've done in the past, and it's boring. Nobody wants an hour of fill in the blank jokes. That whole concept of structuring shows, like an evening of gay comedy, an evening of Jewish comedy, an evening of black comedy. Like,
yes, Ladies of Laughter. I back.
Thank you.
You like
I
that?
back the Ladies of Laughter. Yeah.
I have absolutely no. I mean, they're all probably really wonderful comics, but
yeah,
I don't want to see an hour of fill in the blank comedy. Fuck that.
I'm going to the dad joke show. Who's the? I don't know. It's just dad jokes.
Yeah,
I
dads
love dad
over 40
jokes.
who have been abandoned. Yes.
So I addressed that kind of, and the set was developed in, it was all done here in Brooklyn or in New York, and I've never done a set from scratch before ever, and I just sort of built it up over months, and towards the end I would ask the audience, stick around, Q&A, except I'd be asking the questions and they'd answer them, and I'd say, like, does this feel like too many dad jokes? Not enough? Should I switch up? Where should I do it? And the audience was extremely helpful, and I got through their different audiences, like kind of what I think is sort of the perfect amount.
That's really interesting that you wouldn't just listen to reactions. You'd actually go the extra step and go, let me talk to these people and get their actual feedback on stuff.
I mean, again, this sounds obsequious and corny, but I mean, I have great fans, and I was, as I said, months and months and months putting these shows together in Brooklyn, and they were extremely helpful. The audience came up with the title for the show.
Do you have any fans?
Was there any advice they gave you where you're like, fuck, I'd have been to lose that one? Like, was there anything they told you that was the truth that you're like, that was kind of a hard one to take?
There were probably a couple things where there were bits that I was able to justify, one person or a handful of people at different shows not liking a bit, going, well, fuck them. The other people liked it, and I know it's like offensive or whatever, but I'm going to do it anyway.
So, but you'd keep it in if you were like, I feel strongly about
That's
this.
for me.
This one's for me.
Yeah,
this one's mine.
Every single comic has at least one or two jokes that are, I know it doesn't.
You're almost
doesn't do that
prideful
well,
of
but this is for me.
I have 45 minutes.
Yeah, you're almost prideful of the silence because you're like, yep, that one was mine.
And you're convinced it's going to work someday. Like, I know it's good. Like, I know.
And then it is going to work someday. You're going to be at a Holiday Inn in Rutland, Vermont, and it's going to work. And you go like, see, you guys are smart.
That's right. And then that's literally bought 8 more years of that same joke bombing.
Do you have any fans that you respect more than others in the sense that, like, they recognize you from one thing or the other? Meaning, if somebody comes up to you and goes, "Hey, man, from the Chipmunks," you're like, "Hey, nice to meet you." Versus, like, is there a pinnacle of like, "Yep, you're my people because you like me in this"?
Yeah, definitely. There are, some of the more obscure kind of culty stuff. If people like it, and sometimes they'll reference something that I'm like, "Oh wow, you really picked something out there. That is cool."
Like, what's the number one thing for you that you've been in that would get that reaction?
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yeah, that was
the second one, not the first. It really depends. I mean, geez. I mean, there've been a couple of little like indie films I've done. Probably Todd Margaret is a big one. People know that one. And know of it, not and have seen the whole thing, and then like earlier stand up or whatever, but definitely more. Let's to divide it in half. There's like, Chipmunks and Scary Movie and Arrested Development. Not that Arrested Development isn't great, but
a lot of people have seen it. Yeah,
and then some of the more obscure stuff. Movie called It's a Disaster that was really fun to do. That I really like what I did in it,
I have somebody listens to this and tries to reference one of those movies, and then when you start talking about it, you realize you've never seen the movie.
I should just make one up right now.
So the Chipmunks, you said, wasn't a pleasant work. What kind of clashes do you have with the directors? Like, you didn't like.
It was only the third one.
Oh,
the third one, the first two were fine, and the third one had nothing to do with the director. And the people when we were making it were all very sympathetic to what they were doing, and were totally cool. That was fine. That was great. They were quite helpful, actually. But there were just a handful of producers. This woman, Karen Rosenfeld, and then this other woman, I can't remember her name, but just inexplicably shitty, and like took measures to make my life miserable. Because there's such a long backstory, but I was in London getting ready. I was in pre-production on the second series of Todd Margaret, and I produced that as well as everything else. So I've got 70 people who's have a job, are looking to me and relying on me for a job, and we have been asking them because I was contractually obligated to do it. There's no way to get out of it, and we had been asking them for months, am I going to be a part of it because of Todd Margaret? And they were like, well, we don't know. Kind of go back and forth, never gave us a real answer. And then I remember very well, I was at this department store with my wife, and I get a call, and there's an 8-hour difference between London, and I answer the call. I can see it's my manager. I answer the call, and they're like, hi, David, I have, and then this litany of names, agents and lawyers and all that stuff online for you. I was like, and that's only, thank you, that's only good news or bad news. It's never anything in between. Yes. It's only like something really good or something really bad.
It's never casual.
It's never casual. It's
yeah. There's 15 people that just wanted to say hey.
Yeah. And they said, okay, are you sitting down? So I know it's bad. And then they're like, so Alvin and the Chipmunks is going to happen. I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? And it's happened. They want you there in 2 weeks. And I, like my heart started racing, like where you get kind of angry and you get a little flush and like, what? And they had anticipated all that stuff. And they even said at that point, they're being really shitty. So it turns out.
But you're contractually obligated to do it.
Contractually obligated. And I have all these people. I mean, I'm probably underestimating it. It's probably when you're talking about actors and department heads and people in the department, you're talking about 100 plus people, right. All the transpo and craft service. I mean, everybody. So it was crazy. It was just crazy. And then I'm like, I can't even physically they wanted me to go to Hawaii for rehearsals. It was just and when we pushed back and going, can I get 3 extra days? I have to go to New York to get clothing. I'm living in London now, and they're like, no, you have to be there for, just rehearsals?
Yeah, it's
for fucking Chipmunks?
It's the third one. But I've already done 2 of them.
Is it actually, are you physically in a costume there, or is it only VO?
No, I was playing a live character, but I was also another big source of contention was that
Are you disappointed to learn that Jim Norton is not an Alvin and the Chipmunks fan?
I'm surprised. I'm disappointed to learn you weren't one of the Chipmunks.
I would love to have been. I failed 6 auditions.
Can I hear your Alvin impression?
Hey. What are you doing? I'm a chipmunk.
That's actually really good.
That's what I remember from. I don't know what they sound like.
It's close. Cup your balls. Do it and cup your balls.
That's actually very good.
Hey.
All right, let me cup your balls.
Please do.
All right, go ahead.
Hey.
Oh yeah, see,
just sounds like me.
Yeah, then we'll fix it in post.
So that was really the rigmarole of the whole thing, and that energy never kind of stopped throughout the filming?
No, they were so there was a whole scene, 2 weeks, or I think it was 12 days on a cruise ship. And initially the characters literally only as scripted, only in a pelican costume, or whatever the costume is. And I'm like, well, clearly I don't have to go on the cruise ship. I can fly back to London and,
somebody else can be in the pelican costume.
Yeah. And then the woman's like, I remember calling her, like, begging, pleading, Karen, please. Like, no, you're in the cover set. I'm like, look, and then she said you have a distinctive walk. But also it was bad logic, because before I was, so they eventually had the guy take the character take the head off, but as scripted, what they were planning was you just see the pelican guy and he's chasing the Dave character or whatever, trying to get the chipmunks or whatever, and they're like, no, you have a distinctive walk, but as scripted, you're not supposed to know it's my character until later.
So even the audience is not supposed to know.
Even the audience isn't supposed to know. So it's just like, well, now you're just being shitty, and and the other thing is, when they said, "Yeah, you're in it," I mean, I'm all over it. I'm throughout that script. I'm like, well, you guys could have told us months ago. You don't just magically come up, insert a character in the 90 pages of a 100-page script.
So what'd you do with Todd Margaret?
We had to postpone it.
Oh, you just kind of put it on hold.
Yeah. I mean, everybody understood, but it was really, and we lost some people. Because
they've now got other projects that they were going to do after Todd Margaret or whatever it is.
I produce things. Yeah. That's the other thing. I'm a producer, and I know how monumentally, unnecessarily shitty that was. You don't have to do that. Every single step of the way, you don't have to do that.
Had you ever worked with her before?
On the first two.
And was she okay the first times?
Yeah.
Do you think it was just a power trip thing where all of a sudden you had this other thing, so they wanted to be like, hey, let's humble David a little bit so he understands?
I don't think it was that, but I do think there's a thing in Hollywood, especially amongst agents and producers. Agents, lawyers, producers. There's a thing, and the talent has nothing to do with it. They're just on the periphery of this idea of, that kind of mentality that some people have of, they love a good fight. You see it in politics a lot, where they're chummy after this acrimonious battle, right?
Yeah.
And people are having lunch the next day together. And there's that thing of like winning. I want to win. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the shit that I've laid, the path that I've left here. What matters is that I won.
It doesn't even matter what we're winning. It doesn't matter what the fight is.
Yeah, and you get that sense that it was about my guys versus their guys. And it didn't matter about me. It didn't matter about the project. They don't give a shit about Alvin. It's a it's a bank.
Right.
They don't care about the, minutia of it.
She didn't want to lose the point.
I truly believe it was about winning.
Wow, and it was, and you're sitting here going like, how do we just make this so that everything works for everybody? What difference does it make?
And that's what I've always done, and what most people do.
Yeah,
but I truly don't think it was. And also, it's not like I didn't do a good job in those first two. Like they would have any reason to be upset with me. I go in, I was professional, I was early, or I was on time every day, and I ad-lib stuff, and I collaborated with other people on set, and I did what I do at any project. It was crazy, and really just be helpful. And again, I've produced a ton of stuff, and if somebody has an issue, you go back and you genuinely try to, you look at the board, how can we make this work for everybody?
Right, so everybody kind of goes in happy. Yeah. You talked to, there was talk about, you were a Bernie supporter, your wife was a Hillary supporter, so you guys would butt heads a little bit. Hearing that, like, as a married couple...
We were butt heads a little bit.
Can you imagine... I'm fascinated with Kellyanne Conway and George Conway. Like, how the fuck does that marriage work?
Man, I don't know. I mean, hate fucking?
I can't imagine. Like, what do they say when they get home? Like, she's with Trump, and then Trump is finally like, I got to badmouth your husband, and the husband is just attacking the guy she works. How does that work?
Imagine if your wife's boss, your wife's boss is insulting you, right? Now imagine if your wife's boss is the president, and he's Trump, and he's doing it publicly.
It's not just that. You have to add the element that he knows, and she knows too, that she is lying. He knows that. When they have a conversation, you can bullshit America. You can't bullshit me. I know you're lying. I know what the situation is. That adds a whole other element to it where I go, I don't know how they do this. I don't know.
Right.
Like, how do you even respect somebody who's like, that's my job?
Well, yeah, how do you communicate?
Or at home, though, are they, is it different at home? Is it that same thing? Like what's his name? James Carville and his wife, the Republican strategist, Democratic. Is it that? Or is this seems like it goes a little deeper.
Those are two different philosophies. I get that.
Yeah.
I mean, think of how many relationships and marriages there have been where one's conservative, one's liberal, and, I mean, it's like, the basis for TV shows and shit over decades. But the idea that you would be the mouthpiece, you would lie for somebody who we all know is lying, especially George Conway. He knows his wife. That's the part where I'm like, you can't lie to me,
Right.
Like, how does the conversation go from that point forward?
Yeah. I don't know how they do it. How does she not hate him for attacking her boss? Like, could you just shut the fuck up? You're fucking with me.
And how does
he not hate her for working for somebody and being so vocal for something that he obviously disagrees with so much?
Yeah. It's so weird.
I would love to know what they're like. They're either going to get divorced or this is just completely fine with both of them. I don't see how they.
It's really curious.
Like, regardless of who you work for, can you imagine your spouse verbally bad-mouthing, your boss, and it just how fucking frustrating that would be? Or you imagine your spouse working for a guy you hate.
Yeah.
And she hates.
Not that I know if any conflict still exists anymore or not, but have you thought about trying to get the entire Arrested Development cast into a room together and just working them all out? Just say, give us however many weeks it takes so we can squeeze out another season. Unless that's not an issue.
I don't think it would be an issue. I don't think, I really don't. I mean, there are obviously two people that had a blow up and it wasn't handled well. But I do believe those two people are, smart and not even deep down, just even on the surface, love each other and respect each other and can work that out as two people can. And we were very much like a family. We were together. 15 years we go back from when we started, and anything can be worked out with just discussion. That obviously and unfortunately played out in the public forum and then had a life of its own because that's how people, one of the ways people make money these days is you go and you talk about something that you weren't a part of and you talk about it and you opine and you opine about a person's comment and then you still, and you start even filling in stuff that wasn't even, you weren't privy to, you just presuppose a bunch of things, and that's how people make money, and you get clicks and stuff, and
adding motives that didn't exist.
Yep. And the two individuals, I'm 100% convinced could work it out. All of us could work it out. Absolutely, we're friends. We know each other. We love each other. We have respect for each other. Just like in a family.
Family blow up.
Arguments happen. People blow up, and it's weird when things that are private are played out in public, because then there's a whole nother dynamic to it.
Yeah, everybody else feels like they have an investment in it, and they have a say, and that this is now a bigger thing than it would have been if it was just a private argument that could have been worked out.
Unfortunately, there was that initial argument. Then there was the thing that not only it didn't look good for a reason because it wasn't good, and we didn't handle it well. But there's another step that can obviously, several steps can happen after that. You get together after that, and we also, that was literally the end of a long press thing, and we were all leaving. So that we didn't even get that chance. Everybody was emailing and talking privately, but not the rest of it played out in the public forum, and that's never good. But but I don't think that's the issue. That's not really the issue.
Is there other issues?
Yeah, I just don't think the actors would want to work that way again. It was not a good working situation. And it's one of the things that I think in no small part lent itself to what happened on set.
Want more Jim and Sam? Catch up with full episodes and interviews from celebrity guests anytime on demand using the SiriusXM app.